Munster see off a depleted Dragons side. My name is Mark. Let's talk rugby. Munster started this one on the front foot. They're pinning the Dragons into their own 22 early on. Welsh side, they lose Angus O'Brien to injury in those opening minutes as well. They got to reshuffle that back line a little bit. Munster then attack off a maul. Casey breaks off. His pass comes off the back of Dixon and gets grounded over the line, but TMO review shows that his pass was forward, so any chance of a try is ruled out. Dragons then survive the opening 10 minutes. Then we have a period of kick tennis between the teams. Sean O'Brien, he kicks one dead as a scrum back to the Dragons on the edge of the Munster 22, and their first chance really to attack, to go through some phases, but then Barron gets over the ball, wins a penalty, and Munster come forward. We then have right after that, Nakaville, he puts Nash away. Nash breaks down the left and then puts Scannell over to score. Young Tony Butler converts for 7-0 to Munster. Coombs then goes over for a second try for Munster shortly after that. He basically went over the top of Ashton Hewitt to score, and there's another Dragons player in there trying to tackle him as well. Conversions misses 12-0, and then that score actually came from a penalty from Rodri Williams, who basically is one of those ones where he rolled it one time too many on the ground before placing the ball, and Munster just got in position from there. Then Nash spots a gap. He shakes off a tackle and then puts the hammer down to go over to score. Conversion is missed. It's 17-0. And yeah, Munster looking in control at this stage. Shane Daly then drills a 50-22. The bounce of it then evades Will Reid and goes, into touch. Munster looking to wrap up the bonus point try early on. Dragons don't compete. They nick the line out through Woodman and then they scramble it clear. Then they win a penalty and are able to come upfield. Nash then gets pinged for not rolling away. The Dragons go to the corner. They go through some phases, but eventually they knock on. Good defence from Munster there. Roger Williams then with a great quick kick return shortly after that. Really elusive runner, gets him in position. And then was a Blacker with a lovely crossfield kick off the side of the boot right into Woodman's breadbasket, and he just has too much strength, gets over to score, converted by Reid for 17-7, and that was a halftime score. Into the second half then, Munster, they're attacking early on, but then Dixon gets over the ball for the Dragons, wins a penalty, and they're able to clear. Munster, though, do get their bonus point try. And this one, it's a Hearn. He goes over to score, but there was some great carries from the likes of Adogbo and Condellan in the build-up to that. Converted for 24-7. They then add another try through Casey, and he just ran a lovely supporting line for Daly, who popped it off to him. And before that, then Hearn and Adogbo. Really nice hands from them in the build-up. Butler converts for 31-7, and it just feels like game over. Dragons then come looking for a score. They're applying pressure and forcing penalties. They drive over eventually, but they get held up. Munster are able to kick clear. Sean O'Brien then almost dances his way down the touchline and over, but a great covering tackle from Rodri Williams forces a foot in touch. Munster, though, not to be denied for long. Gleeson drives over from close range, and basically that came from the Dragons' overthrow at a line out, converted for 38-7. Nankivell then concedes a penalty for a high hit, maybe a little bit lucky not to get a yellow card. Dragons go to the corner. Munster, though, turn it over and they clear. Dragons then continue to press, but Munster really looking hungry in defence and not really wanting to concede again. And then it's Munster who actually score next. Jack Crowley with a lovely kick in behind, and Nash gets there first. Nice pace from him. Gathers it, goes over to score in the corner, but then whatever happened, he has to hobble off the field. And yeah, we hope he's back soon. Crowley converts for 45-7. We then have a lengthy stoppage after Nathan Evans seemed to just get his head on completely on the wrong side in a tackle. He's treated on the field, has to go off again. Hopefully he's okay. Dragons then with one last chance from a 5-metre line out after there was a deliberate knock on from Coombs. They drive over in the maul. Sueli, I think, Suuli or something is the score. Is converted for 45-14 full time. So we're going to have a quick look at some of the stats from the game. So on attack, 7 tries to 2. Sorry, stats on the URC thing haven't quite updated. It still has 1 for the Dragons, but they obviously got 2. 7 tries to 2 anyway in favour of Munster. Possession 55-45. Munster with long periods of possession, especially in that first half. Dragons were defending well initially, but just the weight of pressure from Munster, I think, created those scores in the end. Clean breaks then 14-2. Munster, we saw them last year at this time of the year actually trying to bed in that new style of play where it was more kind of, slick kind of passing and that kind of stuff. And I wasn't really working out for them, but it was just, teething troubles for that. But, now they're getting to that stage where even with these, a lot of these guys are not first choice, but there's still, the system is there now. You can see it. And it really was helping them out with those breaks. Defenders beaten 21-11, and offload 6-1. Again, Munster looking to move that ball away from the point of contact whenever they can. On defence, then territory 49-51. So Dragons with the slightly more territory in this one, but they couldn't do all that much of it. Munster's defence though was excellent. Number of tackles 99 from Munster, 127 for the Dragons. Missed tackles just 11 from Munster and 21 for the Dragons. Tackle success then Munster at 90%, which is pretty good. Dragons at 86, which is not terrible. Like 86, 87 is kind of a passing mark, I'd say, for the URC. Turnovers 1 then, 6 for Munster, 8 for the Dragons. The Dragons were very competitive at the breakdown, but they couldn't do too much with the turnover ball. Kicking then, kicks retained, 6 from Munster and 3 for Dragons. Munster competed really well in the air. Kicking success, I still don't know why they have this stat on here, because it's just 0-0. It's just stupid, but we'll ignore that. On to penalties then. 10 penalties conceded by Munster, 4 by the Dragons. Around that time when they actually held the Dragons up, I felt that they probably could have been given like a warning area and could have got a yellow card before the Dragons got held up over the line, because Dragons really were putting on a lot of pressure and forcing those penalties. But on to then just the 2 teams after this. So Dragons driving maul, I thought, looked pretty handy at times. They got over for the score, but there were other times in the middle of the field as well. They made a lot of ground with that. Munster's maul defence didn't look great compared to that. And I felt actually Adogbo in the carry, he was very effective, but his maul defence, it definitely needs work. For a big guy, he doesn't seem to get himself in the right positions to be able to halt progress. I saw him on the side a lot, and not really, doing any kind of pushing to stop them. But it wasn't just him. Munster's maul defence, I think, needs a bit of work. But Dragons as well, very competitive at that breakdown. We saw how many turnovers that they won, but just couldn't turn that into any kind of, scores or anything like that. They were missing a lot of players, in the Wales squad for that Barbarians test, non-cap test, which I don't ask me why they had this test. I noticed like every year Wales always have an extra game in the kind of October, November window for whatever reason. I think they just want to generate more money because they're not generating. They feel like at least they're not generating enough. Plus they had a long injury list as well. But the way Wales are going about things, it really makes me wonder if there's any kind of joined up thinking in Welsh rugby going on at all, because denuding your regions of players at a time, start of the URC season, where a good start can really set you up for a good season, and then that can feed into confidence and feed into the national team. So they're obviously not thinking long term at all. It's just about getting that money in the short term, and I don't really like that. And I hope somebody in there actually starts turning things around for them, because I don't know where they're going to go from here, honestly, with the way they're doing things. But the Dragons, the first 2 rounds, they had close games where potentially if a bounce the ball or wherever had it gone their way, they might have got a win. But in this one, they were nowhere near it, and that was thanks to Munster. There was a lot of good performances for Munster. We talked about a lot of the players that had impact on there, but some other players as well. I thought the front row, Diarmuid Barron was really good. John Ryan, who's come back from the Chiefs, he's a good addition to the squad for this year. And Kieran Ryan went well as well too. We talked about the second rows, a Dogbo and a Hearn. Some really nice hands and good carrying from them as well. That back row, Jack O'Donoghue, Alex Kendlin and Gavin Coombs were excellent as well. And you had the likes of who's a Quinn come off the bench as well, and who else was it? Somebody else come off the bench. Brian Gleeson come off the bench too, and he was excellent as well. In the backs, Nash really was the standout there, but Tony Butler, young lad, did really well. Craig Casey, looked decent at times. I thought there were times where he was going a little too quickly, trying to force things as well. The centres, Rory Scannell, you know what you're going to get from him, and Nankiville, oppressed by him as well. And O'Brien and Daly as well. There, those guys had decent games too. So all across the pitch really. But Munster now, they've had 2 wins and a draw, and they really have started their defence well. Now they've just got to keep that going and try to remain unbeaten as long as they can.